Welcome to Catch Outdoors, presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network at waypointtv.com. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modes, reporting to listeners each and every week from the fabulous Florida Keys. This podcast is centered around the great outdoors, especially down here in the most southern regions of the continental U.S. So kick back for the next 40 minutes or so and get a taste of my Florida. This week's episode is number 84. Southern half of Florida. But first, a fishing report. Janelle and I explored and fished a new area for us up in Blackwater Sound with access through a small, shallow water pass. So basically, we live across the street from Blackwater Sound. And we fished in that area and fished up near a thing called the Bogies, which are some... it's a cut through that runs up into Florida Bay. But we hadn't gone into the top of Blackwater Sound, which is called Little Blackwater Sound. So we went over that way, and we did that. We ran up in there. And the pass was pretty good. I got a nice cuda, but we caught, everything else was very small. We caught a lot of little leather jacks. We caught some small mangrove snapper. Honestly, it wasn't that active. Then again, the weather was kind of weird yesterday. It was prefrontal. It should have been good, but it wasn't. The tide was coming in, should have been good, but it wasn't. Lots of bait around, so I don't know what the deal was. It was just kind of strange. And then the wind, of course, this was really weird. The Weather Service, who I at times am not very happy with, that comes from being a captain for years. The wind was slated at 5 to 10 out of the south because of this pre-front that's coming. And I'm recording this on Sunday, and it's getting really ugly outside right now. We're actually on tornado watch in the lower Keys, which is very unusual. I think all of Florida right now is on a tornado watch, believe it or not. Anyway, the Weather Service at 5 to 10 out of the south was wrong, and by the time we headed back, it was 15 to 20 out of the south. Never trust the weather, folks, especially when it comes fishing in the Keys. The Weather Service seems to all be about Miami and Key West, which makes the middle ground of 100 miles. It's somewhat of a guess, I guess. I don't know. I've learned during my guiding days to always add 5 miles per hour to any wind forecast. So if it says 5 to 10, just make it 10 to 15. In this case, we were definitely getting gusts to 20. And so the ride back was a little bumpy, but the Mako, it handled it quite well. So I'm real happy with that skiff. It rode it out all right. Other reports from the Keys over the past week, just to run through some stuff for you. It was a bit sparser than last week. The weather was pretty iffy wind-wise. We had showers come through, and I don't know, it's turning into summer is basically what's happening. It got warm. It got humid. Heck, we had 90 degrees yesterday, so that's pretty unusual for April. But because the weather has been real wishy-washy, nobody knew when to go. So, and if they went, they were watching out for storms. Let's see. Out on the outside, I saw a lot of reports for mahi, especially trolling for mahi with rigged ballyhoo. And then the bycatch, and I love the bycatch. The bycatch was wahoo and sailfish. So that's not bad. I mean, one sailfish on a trip to me, that's a great day. And I would go with the wahoo that way as well. On the patch reefs, it was all about yellowtail snapper, and I'm not surprised about that. As a matter of fact, it seems like that's 365 days a year around here. Advice from the captains was to bring plenty of chum and get them up off the reefs and then target them with live shrimp with no weight on circle hooks. And I've done that before. Basically, what you do is you rig up a circle hook, no weight at all, put a nice live shrimp on the whole thing. Typically, with yellowtail, I do halves because they're so good at yanking part of it off anyway before they hit the hook. But you chum them up, you get them behind the boat, and then you gently cast that away from the boat, not very far, and then leave the bail on a spinning rod open, and then just peel the line up with your fingers. And as that bait free-lined drifts backwards in the chum line, it's more likely to get hit. It looks more natural. So if you weight it and it goes down, that doesn't work so well. If you cast it on top of them, they'll sink. So that's the technique they were all using. They were in close, within 3 miles. They were on the Patcheries up and down Key Largo, down into Tavernier, and even, well, yeah, I did hear one Alamorada, but this was mostly Key Largo and Tavernier. But most folks were out just about 3 miles, which ain't that far at all. For those of my listeners, my old-time listeners that are from the Lee County area, that would be like going to the May Reef out of Fort Myers Beach. So not a very far trip at all to get on some really good fish. Episode 84, the southern half of Florida. I recently traveled up to Fort Myers from the Keys for my monthly checkup. That's right, monthly. Most folks do an annual, which is a really good idea, but I'm fighting blood-bone cancer called multiple myeloma that requires I take a chemo pill. Yeah, it's fun. 3 weeks on and 1 week off. I can only get the drug if I get a blood check every single month. Pain in the ass, but it must be done. The reality of that is, it's a good thing. I get checked every single month. So if there's any reoccurring cancer or anything happens that doesn't seem right, they'll know about it right away, which is a really good way to approach anything, really. Anything that's not quite right with you. If you have heart disease, more checkups you have, the better off you are. And blood pressure and cholesterol and all that stuff. The more you can control it and keep control, the better off you are. I've been doing pretty good, though. I have been fighting this for 7 years now. 8 years altogether, 7 years since my stem cell transplant. And the stem cell transplant got rid of the cancer completely for now. Multiple myeloma has a very bad habit of reoccurring, and there is no cure. It's controllable with drugs and chemo and stuff like that. So I'm doing that battle. In the meantime, I ain't slowing down. So, hey, that's my philosophy. This is how it goes, So anyhow, I drove up from Key Largo through Homestead, then Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and then I turned west on I-75 and headed to Naples, and then through Bonita Springs, and eventually into Fort Myers. That's about a 3-hour run. I leave the Keys at 4:30 in the morning. Woo-wee. Okay, so that's when I used to start fishing, or go fishing for bait before I pick my people up. So 4:30 is not that big a deal. I do that to avoid the big city traffic problems. Once you get out of Key Largo, you go up the 18-mile stretch and you get past Homestead, you run into the turnpike. And at that point, that's all the people that live in Homestead that work north, that work in Miami and places like that. They're on the road. So you got to go early to get through that. And the same thing with I-75. So the drive up is mostly in the dark this time of year. Drive back is mid-morning, and it gives me a chance to look around. And that was the inspiration for this week's podcast, the southern half of Florida. So the first thing I thought I'd do before I breach the subject, I thought I'd determine what is actually the southern part of Florida. Because honestly, we always hear about Southwest and South Florida, which Southwest Florida generally means the Fort Myers area up to maybe Tampa, but generally not. Most people, when they say Southwest Florida, they're really talking about further down. And South Florida, a little different. That's on the other side. That's like Palm Beach south through Miami. So I really wanted to kind of get a measurement, if you will. I'm like that. It's that damn science creeps in all the time. So I loaded up Google Earth. I used the measuring tool that they have on there. And I went from the northernmost border of the Panhandle all the way down to Key West. And the number came up to 491 miles. That's direct miles now, not driving around curves and stuff. So give or take a few miles. Divide that in half and you get 245.5 miles. So I put the measuring device on Key West and I ran it north until it hit that number, and it was just about Tampa, little bit above Tampa. So then I drew a straight line across Florida, and it landed just about at Sebastian. So there I had what I consider to be southern Florida. Okay, so just so you know where I'm going with this. So that gave me what I will call the southern half of Florida from here on out. Now that I know. So if you're in Sebastian, you're in southern Florida. You may not feel that way, but you are. So, if you hear background noise, it's blowing and raining outside, and I don't have a recording studio. I'm doing this in my office, so I apologize for any strange sounds coming in through the outside the mic. Man, oh man, is that ever a diverse area? We have 3 big cities in there, Tampa, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. We have Southwest Florida's beautiful beaches from Charlotte Harbor all the way down to Naples and Marco Island. We have Clearwater, St. Pete, which includes Dunedin and Tarpon Springs mixed in. And on the East Coast is Sebastian, one of the best shoreline fishing areas in all of Florida. And there's also lots and lots of small towns as you head south along the coast. My wife used to work for tourism. Janelle worked for tourism in Broward County before we came down to the Keys. And get this, there are 31 city municipalities within that county alone, just in Broward County. I find that amazing. And then there's the Keys. 100 miles of islands with the unique privilege of still being included in the continental U.S., but more like Caribbean islands. And each one's a bit different than the others. And believe me, I can attest to that. The Keys are divided up basically into, I guess you'd say, 3 major areas. The Key Largo area, the Middle Keys down to Marathon, and then all the way down to Key West. And in between that, you've got Big Pine up from Key West, and then you have Islamorada and Tavernier in between Key Largo and Marathon. But it's 100 miles long, so it's kind of hard to keep track of at times. But in the interior of southern Florida, you have Lake Okeechobee, one of the best places in all of the USA to catch that trophy bass. There are also counties that support agriculture and beef farming. Heading north, there's Lake Wales and many other small towns that have actual rolling hills, real elevation. It seems like a mountain in Florida. I forget what the actual highest elevation. It's a little over 300 feet or somewhere around 300 feet above sea level, and that would be in that area. But I've always found that interesting because I've lived in other areas, so it's kind of cool. But and then there's the Everglades. No elevation there. It's a world all of its own. Specifically, the Everglades National Park, an enormous expanse of land. I looked it up. It covers 2,357 square miles, over 1.5 million acres of land, and mostly water. I should add that, land and water, swamp. It's one of my favorite places. And I've only explored a very small part of it, to be honest. And a great bit of what I've explored is in the water. A lot of folks don't realize that the Everglades National Park starts right down here by the Keys. The borderline is essentially in some places about a little lower than the middle of the Florida Keys. But when you get down to like Islamorada, it's just on the other side of the Intercoastal Waterway. And if you look on a map, a nautical chart or a map, you'll see the Intercoastal Waterway markings. And just inside that, that's considered Everglades National Park. So kind of cool when you think about it. Something to note about that, too, while I'm talking about it. If you're in the Everglades National Park on water, if you're in a boat, you have to have a park pass. I know it's not always advertised or come into play, but if you ever get stopped by one of the park officers, they're going to let you know that. I'm not sure what they do. I doubt it's a fine. They'll probably tell you got to buy one or go get one, or that I don't know because I have one. For those of you folks that are over 65, you can get a permanent, old folks pass that you pay one fee for. I don't know what it is now. It's around $80, I think, and that will get you into the park all the time. And I believe if you look closely at the park pass, it also allows for one guest or a guest. I think that's how it worded, with you into the park. So if you're going to spend a lot of time in the Everglades down this way, especially if you fish in the Everglades National Park like we do, it just behooves you to have that. So, yeah, but most people don't really, relate that. It's like Janelle and I were talking about Monroe County. Monroe County goes all the way up into the Everglades. Most folks think of Monroe County as only being the Florida Keys. It's not. When you get into the Everglades, that's Monroe County. It's not when you're over at Homestead, and it's not when you're way over at Marco Island, and that's Collier County. But south of that, you're technically in Monroe. And so Monroe has some mainland Florida. That stumped me. If you'd asked a question like that in Jeopardy, I would have missed it for sure. Okay, here comes your dose of reality. And I'm not going to rant too much here, but I'm going to quietly complain. Most people that know me know I don't really rant that much, especially not in public. There's things that you learn not to do when you're a fishing guide, and ranting is definitely one of them. On board the boat, you do not talk about religion. You do not talk politics. That's pretty much it. On a boat, most of the conversation revolves around sports, oddly enough. So you got to get pretty well versed at all of them. If you're going to be a fishing guide, you should probably know football, basketball, and baseball. Golf would not hurt, of course. and then, of course, fishing conversation. So here's your dose of reality. I love Florida. I've been pretty taken aback by the bad press and weirdness coming from social media about my state, especially recently. Most seems to be the narrative that Governor DeSantis is a terrible governor. Okay. If that's what you want to think, that's okay. It's odd, though, that roughly 70% of Floridians reelected him for another term. What I really find funny is that all folks that say they hate Florida, actually hate it. They actually want to move here to escape bad cold weather up north. Really? So which side of the fence are you really standing on? You prefer just to stay cold? We're just so bad down here. You probably don't want to be here. Right. Okay, let's throw politics in the trash. At this point, that's where it belongs. In all my travels to most of the southern reaches of Florida, I've only found a very diverse population that enjoys living outside almost 365 days a year. We tolerate hurricanes, floods. We tolerate mosquitoes and alligators. We tolerate lightning and torrential rain almost every afternoon in the summer. And yes, we even tolerate rude visitors. We're good at that. So what's not to like about Florida? Really, do those that badmouth my state really know anything about the state other than what they read on the web or see on TV? Have they ever even been here? Have they seen the beauty of the beaches, the islands of the Keys, the fantastic bass fishing on Lake O, and the sunsets that just can't be beat, especially standing on Mallory Square in Key West? I think not. So driving this past Thursday for almost 400 miles brought all this front and center for me. We have an amazing state, full of great things to see and do, along with a wonderfully diverse population of people from all over the world who've worked very hard to get here. And we all seem to get along with each other just fine. Now, mark my words now, I've lived in a lot of places across America. I'm old, and I like to travel, and it doesn't bother me to live in different places. I'm not one of those people that just stays, born in a state, stays in a state. I couldn't do that if I had to. I've lived in San Francisco. I've lived in Alameda, both in California. I've lived in Williamsburg and Yorktown, Virginia. I was born in Williamsburg, moved down to Florida when I was 5. I was stationed in Yorktown, Virginia. Cape May, New Jersey, stationed there in the Coast Guard. Cool place, really cool place. Cool people. Clearwater, Florida, where I grew up. Fort Myers, Florida, where I spent an enormous amount of time on a boat. Fort Lauderdale and Miami, Florida, both for work, way back when I was in the banking business. And now in Key Largo. I've also traveled to almost every single state in the U.S., except Hawaii, Connecticut, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. I've seen a lot. My take is the United States is incredible, and I'm very happy to be an American. However, after all my travels, I can't live anywhere else but Florida, and specifically the Keys. Yeah, it's taken my heart. It took my heart years ago. It took my heart back in the 80s, some of my first visits to Florida Keys. And it's only grown. It just you'd have to drag me out of here kicking and screaming. I'm not kidding you. Heck, I've reached a point where I don't even want to drive off of the islands. Nope. I guess it's about the cold. There are a lot of really nice places in the U.S., but most of them, even northern Florida, have cold weather and ice storms and tornadoes and earthquakes. I know. We have hurricanes. Yep, that's right. But we receive warnings days in advance to get the hell out of Dodge, and I personally take those very seriously. It's got to be tough to pack up and move when a tornado is bearing down on you, and I just put that's tongue-in-cheek. Okay, I know tornadoes are not funny, but the reality of it is you ain't got no time. You got just enough time to climb into the basement. That's about it, or the tub if you don't have a basement. Down here we have plenty of planning time as long as people heed the warnings, and get away. And it works out pretty good if you do that. It may not work out great for your property, but you're still alive. In southern Florida, there are many things to see and do. Tampa's a pretty cool city. I grew up in Clearwater, so I've been up there a bunch. It's known for pirates, beer, and cigars. That part's for the adults, the beer and cigar part. Pirates are for the kids. Well, actually for the adults too. Yeah, be sure to visit there during the latter part of January. There are parades, pirate ships, and lots of cannons going off. Yep, Gasparilla. Yeah, Gasparilla celebration is really fantastic. It's a ton of fun. It's been going on since 1904. It celebrates the pirate Jose Gaspar, who terrorized the coastal waters of Southwest Florida in the 18th and 19th century. Dress up like a pirate. Talk like a pirate. Join in on the fun. It's definitely something to see. And it's some of my earliest memories. My dad would load us in the car and take us to Tampa for the Gasparilla celebration back in the 60s. It was incredible. And I mean, it's a vivid memory for me. Down in Fort Myers, there's the annual Shrimp Festival held in March. This year, they had to cancel it. You probably know why. Hurricane Ian certainly screwed things up down that way. So I feel sure it'll be back. Probably sooner than later. I'm hoping next March 2024 that it's going strong. And who doesn't like shrimp? I'm sure there's some people out there, but man, I haven't met too many. I love it. There's a parade there, a shrimp boil, shrimp eating contest, art fairs, expos. Oh, they have the crowning of the shrimp queen. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. Most of the celebrations held on the beach, so that's definitely worth it. And things are getting better down there in Fort Myers. I've seen some pretty nice reports. I mean, it's torn up. We all know it's bad, but they are making progress and they are rebuilding the best they can right now. Not a lot of help from the government. I can tell you that right now. Feds don't seem to care. That's just my take on it. You might feel differently, but I have family that's struggling to get things put back together, and just trying to get anybody to do anything is really, really difficult right now. So there's a lack of help, and that's bad. The Naples National Art Fair. I'm moving down the coast, as you can tell. It's a sight to behold. It's considered one of the top art and craft shows in the whole country. It's held each February at Cambier Park. That's on 8th Street in the heart of downtown Naples. It's only one block from the shopping district and dining district of 5th Avenue. And when I lived in Fort Myers, one of my favorite things to do with my wife was to go down to 5th Avenue and just travel the avenue, especially at Christmas time. So, because they decorate it up real pretty. February, yeah, go to the park, hang out. For those that are not only looking for beaches, there are tons of winter festivals throughout Southwest Florida. Remember that. Everywhere you go in Southwest Florida, from that border I drew across Tampa to Sebastian, something is going on, to celebrate wintertime here. Just a note, we do things backwards here, which is a little hard for some folks to understand until you realize that the snowbirds come crashing down here in January and February, right after Christmas, man. They're pouring in here because it got cold up north. I've already talked about that a minute ago. They show up because it's cold up there. So we do all of our festivals that time of year because we can go outside. In the summertime, it is so blasted hot, you just want to be in air conditioning. Oh, you might want to be out there in the morning. You might want to go fishing. You might want to do stuff like that. But the reality is that weather, when it comes in, is just, it's just fantastic. We get our first cold fronts, in late October, early November. We finally get a break in the weather. It goes from 90 down to 81. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge jump for us. And so we have a lot of festivals in the wintertime. So if you really want to see what Southern Florida is all about, it's a great time to be here because we do all of our fairs and our art fairs and our shows and our outdoor stuff at that time of year. Moving down the coast here just a little bit, near the end of October, the Stone Crab Festival is held in Naples at Tin City at Bayfront. What's a stone crab? I'll tell you. Stone crab is a renewable resource seafood, which is pretty weird. Let's just say unusual. I think it may be one of the only ones. They pull stone crabs up in crab traps. They break off the claw and then release the animal to grow another claw. Works out pretty daggone well. And they're only allowed to pull certain claws a certain size, things like that, to make sure that the crabs will survive and continue on. And as a matter of fact, stone crab ends. We're doing this on Sunday, May 2nd is the closure. So they moved that up, by the way. Those of you are going, wait. It used to be the 15th. You're right. It used to be May 15th. They moved it up to help protect the crabs a little bit more. So they bumped it up to the first part of May now. Is there anything like a stone crab? No. I've had them all. Like I said, I've lived everywhere. So I've had Alaskan kings all the way over to blue crab in Virginia. Oh, I love blue crab. But there's nothing like a stone crab. It's just absolutely delicious. You dip that in butter and it just doesn't get any better. So if you haven't tried it, you should. You can't right now. You have to wait till next year. Opens back up in October. Just so you know, the season's October through all of April. Yep, I almost said the middle of May. See, I'm still confused. But it's really worth it. And that's, the Stone Crab Festival down in Naples is really neat at Tin City. And, of course, it goes all the way down into Chokoloskee, where a lot of stone crabs are caught and harvested to be sold all over the lower state of Florida. But it's a renewable resource. That's why I like to talk about it. I think it's really cool that it's something that we can enjoy and know that the creature is just going to grow more claws or more claws back, and we can catch them again later. Moving across the state over to Sebastian, Florida. Sebastian's home to Pelican Island. Did you know that that's America's first national wildlife refuge? I did not know that. It's also known for its unspoiled beauty, diverse fishing, that's the understatement, and from world-class bass, some serious bass fishing, to deep sea and inlet fishing, and that's what I love doing there. I've fished Sebastian Inlet State Park, and it is crazy good. There are huge snook, a lot of big surprises in the moving water, great big trout, on both tides, inbound or outbound. If you're visiting the area, bring your fishing gear. And bring some big stuff, because you'd be surprised what you catch in the inlet. And the inlet's like a little party, man. A lot of people go there. They stand on the rocks. We chit-chat with each other, find out what's working, what's not working, how much weight are you going to need today to keep the bait down at the bottom. I mean, the water screams in and out of that inlet. But it's one of my favorite places in Florida to fish. It really is. It's great. Further south on the East Coast, you find Boca Raton, the home of Red Reef Park. It's a bunch of fun for snorkelers. You can simply walk into the water and then swim around these huge boulders that hold snapper and snook and barracuda and all kinds of tropical fish. I'm talking an area you can, when your face isn't in the water, you can stand up and the water comes to about an adult's chest. So it's easy to take the kids there and swim around with a snorkel and a mask on and let them see all the wildlife and stuff on the bottom. And it's a beautiful place. The beach is gorgeous. Plenty of parking. Set up with a park type system, so there's different parking areas and different walkouts to get onto the beach. But Janelle and I visited several times there when we lived over on the other coast, up on in Fort Lauderdale. We would travel up to Boca Raton just to go to the Red Reef Park. So be sure to check it out. That's really a neat place. Next stop heading south is Fort Lauderdale. I've lived there twice. Once 20 some odd years ago, and again just over the past 3 years before we moved down here to Key Largo. Yeah, it's known for beaches, restaurants, delicious seafood, deep sea fishing, huge yachts from all around the world. But I love the annual air show held on Fort Lauderdale Beach in April. It just happened this past weekend. I don't think they're flying today. We got this horrible weather coming in. It was supposed to be Saturday, Sunday, so if you went to Saturday Air Show, you probably got it done. I'm not so sure they're flying today. But what could be better than watching the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds while you're sitting on a beach? Not to mention all the other aircraft they bring in and fly up and parade around. It really is a ton of fun. So if you're down here and you're a winter guest, you come down as a snowbird and you're thinking about going home, hang on there through April and go to the air show. It's really a lot of fun. We also have one of the largest in-water marine boat shows. Yeah, the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show is incredible, and that's another fun time. And you get to see some of the most magnificent yachts you've ever laid eyes on. I love that. I can't afford them, but I sure love going on board and looking at them. It's pretty much a grin. Miami, same as Fort Lauderdale, only different. A lot different. It's hard to believe that they're joined together. It really is. You have two major metropolises, two giant cities side by side, but they really are quite different. Miami's got pro football, baseball, basketball to attend. If you're into that, they also have huge concerts from big stars all around the world come in and play. They even have a Grand Prix race. Yes, sir. And that was a huge hit last year. They finally returned it to Miami, and now it's back on the list, so it'll be there again this year. But my favorite take is Little Havana. I mentioned the diversity of Florida, and there is no better place to experience that than along Calle Ocho in the heart of Miami, where you'll find Cuban coffee and my favorite pressed Cuban sandwiches. Oh, yum. Cuban coffee is a real thing, too, man. When I worked in Miami, everything stopped at the office at 3 o'clock for a Cuban coffee break. What's better than that? That's like your wake-up call. You get to 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're pretty much done mentally. If you've been working, I worked in technology at the bank, and it would just wear on you. Trying to get things done, trying to get things scheduled, trying to get upgrades done, making sure the wiring is here for this or that. By 3, man, you're just dragging. All you're hoping for now is 5:36 just to get the hell out of Dodge. But nope. Well, the Cubans got it figured out. They make Cuban coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The whole place smells wonderful. So there you go. That was, man, I kind of missed that. Got kids in tow? Head to the Miami Zoo. Voted one of the top zoos in the country. It's huge, and I love going there. It's in far western Miami-Dade County, right up against the Everglades, and just about every creature you can imagine, and very well displayed, is shown there in wide open spaces. You never feel like any animal is cramped or caged. It's an amazing place. Heck, a good part of it looks like Africa. I mean, seriously, when you're walking through this gigantic pathway, you feel like you're walking across the plains of Africa. Because of its size, it's a good idea to plan an entire day there. And if you got little ones, by all means, strollers are highly recommended. They've also got carts that you can rent. They've got those bicycles, the 4-wheel and 3-wheel bicycles that you can sit a family of 4 in. You can use those to cart around on too. That's how big this place is. A lot of fun. I really enjoy going there. Now, speaking of being up against the Everglades, as a zoo is, go to the Everglades. Go to Everglades National Park. Yes, I mentioned it earlier, and it's a must-see from the land. The entrance is just to the west of Homestead, Florida, so perhaps a stop on the way to the Florida Keys would be in order. There's also an entrance over in Chokoloskee area, Everglades City. So that's I guess we'll call that the western entrance to the Everglades. So if you're traveling down that side, or you live over there, or you're visiting Naples in that area, that's how you can go into the Everglades from that side. But the reality is, and that's mostly water entrance, by the way, there. The land entrance is only over on the Homestead side. It's a must-see. It's just, I don't know. Every time I'm there, I can't get over the vistas. As far as you can see, there's nothing but wilderness. It's awe-inspiring, and I'm so thankful that there were people from the 1920s forward to the 1940s willing to work so hard to protect it. I mean, it would have easily been turned into farmland if we weren't careful. It's a one-of-a-kind area, and President Harry S. Truman, he dedicated the park in 1947, and I'll be forever thankful for that. Remember, we were just there for the 75th anniversary, and it was really great. It was really great to see all the people there happy and chatting with each other and carrying on with each other about how great that area is. There's nothing else like it. And don't forget what I said earlier, the park extends into Florida Bay between the mainland Florida and the Florida Keys. Ah, yes, the Keys. You all know I love to talk about this. My new and hopefully final home in Florida. I haven't ever gotten tired of travel, but I'm tired of moving. Bagging boxes and getting the mover and getting I would really rather not do that again. So I'm pretty happy to be right where we are. Janelle and I actually met in Key West in the mid-90s. We've explored almost all of the islands by road and some by boat, and love the ability to find places where there are no people, only fish, bottlenose dolphin, manatees, and birds. The occasional crocodile. That makes us happy. While the Keys are known for being party central, I guess, thanks to singer-songwriter Jimmy Buffett. It's also home for many like-minded people that enjoy really good seafood, fishing, and year-round warm weather. The camaraderie here is amazing. I've lived, as I mentioned, in a lot of places, but I have not been greeted by neighbors like we have here. They've all shown up. They all say hello. They all wave at each other. It's pretty amazing after you live in a big city where most people don't even look into each other's eyes, which is terrible. That really is bad. There are a total of 10 state parks in the Keys. Think about that. State parks, 10 of them, and just in the Keys, along with many other smaller local parks, and all are worth a visit. We fish here, snorkel, scuba dive, play outside all year long. We wear shorts and flip-flops all year long. We only dress up for church and funerals. Well, maybe not even church. I think one of the most wonderful things about Florida Keys is the ability to see the sunrise over the ocean and then a sunset over the Gulf of Mexico. I wonder how many photographs there are of both in visitors' and residents' collections. I know I have more than a few. A visit to the Keys it's a must. If you're doing southern Florida, from the border of the Hydro all the way down, you got to come. You can fly in privately to Marathon, and you can fly in commercially to Key West, but that's boring. Well, the view is nice. You can also get here by boat. They have boats out of Naples, and I don't know if the Fort Myers Beach one's back up. I heard it was, but they have a thing called the Key West Express boat. You can board that and come down to Key West. But the reality is, and I've said this before in previous podcasts, driving down is the way to go. If you're flying into Miami or Fort Lauderdale, you rent a car and you drive. If you're a resident of Florida, you make a point to drive into the Florida Keys and drive down to Key West. There's just so much to see on either side of the road. Once you get down into Tavernier and Islamorada, I mean, you've got the beautiful Florida Bay on one side and then eventually the Gulf of Mexico on that side, on the right side of the road. On the left side of the road, you got the Atlantic Ocean, and the colors are spectacular. The ocean is this crystal aquamarine blue, green. It's unbelievable, and it's really worth seeing it from an automobile. Believe it or not, the visibility is pretty good. Better if you're in a truck or a Jeep or something up high, but it's wonderful. It's a great place to be, and then you've got all the little places you can stop along the way. So, I would highly recommend trying to do it by auto rather than flying in. Not that you can't; you can. I got a friend of mine who comes down, and they fly down from I believe he's in Naples. Flies down for breakfast or lunch. He comes down to Key West or Marathon and lands at the airport and then goes to his favorite restaurant. So you can do that too, I suppose. Florida's a wonderful place to be, and I highly recommend you visit it and see it for yourself. Don't rely on what you hear in the press. Don't rely on what you're hearing on the web and all the crazy stuff that's going on. We really are a pretty cool state. And we really it's an enormous state with lots and lots of things to do and see. And I've only talked about the southern end. There's a whole lot going on up in the northern end of Florida, too. Before I sign off, thanks so much for the notes, comments, great questions via email and text, great ideas for upcoming podcasts. I appreciate those, too. You got something you want to hear, you're like, why haven't you talked about this? But send it to me. Let me know. The email is catchyoutdoors. That's catchyoutdoors@gmail.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. My podcasts are scheduled for each and every Tuesday. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Catch Outdoors is presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network. It's available on Waypoint and many of your favorite podcast providers. The Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. The websites are catchoutdoors.com and waypointtv.com. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.